time for a chat with Pat.
Yes, and today our guest is Michael Wilkerson. He is a strategic advisor, investor, and author, and he wrote a great article in First Things. I just loved it. Excuse me, and it's called Faith Before Technology. Welcome, Michael. How are you today?
Good morning, Pat. Doing great. Good to be with you all.
This is a great article, Michael, and I love the way you started out. But from a quote from the monster to Dr. Frankenstein: "You are my creator, but I am your master. Obey." I love that because I thought this is a great way to start this article out, and this certainly is something we are all struggling with. So, can you kind of help us as Christians? What makes our response to AI a little bit different? How do we kind of pull our faith into this?
Well, thank you for having me on. And I will say, Mary Shelley and Frankenstein anticipated the problem that we face today, which is our very own creations at some point have the power to control us. And we're seeing that already with the advent of technology. We see how many of us are addicted to our mobile devices, our phones, and really separating us in some ways from our own humanness. Technology is inherently neither good nor evil. All things that were created for good, but of course we have potential to use technology for either good or evil. The same axe that can cut firewood can injure someone else. Nuclear devices can either power a city or destroy it.
Right.
The challenge for the Christian is to understand that we are created divinely with the divine spark, and to be able to continue to separate ourselves from the power of technology. And frankly, it goes back to the traditional spiritual disciplines of prayer, of silence, of turning off our devices as a practical matter, and reconnecting with our God, with our family, and with our friends at a human level.
Do you think part of the issue is that today we don't even have a good appreciation of what a human person is or a human being is? So anything goes with the human person?
I think it's absolutely an issue, and you're aware that in our universities and even in our media, the lines are being blurred. There's no longer this idea that humanness is something distinct in the universe, that we are, from the naturalist, the materialist perspective, in a world without God, very little more than primordial slime, that we somehow managed to move along, but we're not doing that well, and so we actually need technology to help us transcend into something greater than we are. And this is the biggest lie of all, because this whole artificial intelligence push for transhumanism, for this idea of super intelligence, something beyond the human intelligence that might one day help us progress to the next stage, this is a parody of the Christian faith, because, of course, we know that when Jesus rose from the dead, he revealed what superhumanness actually looks like to rise in glorified form, and that one day we all will share in that higher state of our own mortal bodies, which will pass away in this form, but be raised at the end in another glorified form. So we actually have under attack the very idea of who we are as humans, and trying to replace it with something not based on what God designed, but on silicon and on technology, an artificial falsehood, and something much inferior, almost like the way the people who built the Tower of Babel tried to use bricks and mortar to reach the heavens, but it was not going to last.
Yeah. You mentioned in the article that it appears God intended AI would be kind of discovered over time. Can you explain that to our audience?
Well, I think there's this beautiful proverb that says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings to search out a matter." So it was this idea that God has put all these things hidden in creation, waiting for, at the right time and place, for humanity to discover it. You could think about all the inventions that have come along over time, all of the uses that we've discovered of minerals, of chemicals, that were always there. God knew that you could use A plus B to create C, but he was waiting for the right time. So none of this is surprising to God. None of the developments in artificial intelligence or any technology, whether it have been the printing press or anything along the way, nuclear power, God knew that it was there and that it was going to be used. Now, of course, as humans, he's also given us the free will to choose, will we use that for good or will we use it for evil? And I do think that it is fair to say that AI is different in that, well, it's akin to nuclear in that the power, the potential power, the latent power is so strong that it could be used for very horrible evils. For
Yeah.
example, the way it perfects the surveillance state that we see going on in countries around the world, including our own.
Right. So you also mentioned that you don't think engineers or the people that are kind of working on this should really be decide kind of the question of its use in technology. Why to you is that important?
I think it's an important distinction. Scientists, engineers, they love their jobs. They love to do what they do. And what do they want to do? They want to discover, they want to create. But oftentimes they don't think about the meaning behind what they're doing. So there's this famous quote by J. Robert Oppenheimer, who led the development of the atomic and hydrogen bombs. And he said, when you see something that is technically sweet, you go ahead and do it. And you argue about what to do about it only after you have had your technical success. So for scientists and engineers, is it possible as opposed to is it right? And so you need to step back or have someone else saying, what are we doing here? What are the ethical boundaries? Where do we need to draw the line?
Yeah. And you mentioned in your article that, and I hear this said a lot, maybe AI is, the Antichrist. But you kind of introduce a new term that I've never heard talked about before in AI. And you bring it up in the regards of, is it the Antichrist or I think it's catachan? Did I say that right?
Catachan.
So,
It's a Greek
yeah.
word that was used in the second book of Thessalonians when Paul's referring to the restraining force that would keep back the Antichrist. And he says the spirit of Antichrist is already at work, but there is this catachan, the restraining force that's holding him back in time. And this isn't my idea. It was something that Peter Thiel, the
Right.
founder of PayPal and very much involved in AI and technology, suggests, because he himself is concerned about, is AI a tool of the Antichrist? And I think the conclusion is it has potential to be both. Going back to the same point of technology being able to be used for good or evil, you could see, in particular, as I mentioned, in relation to the surveillance state, the ability to control how one participates in the economy, how one participates in society, that AI could be used as a very negative tool, akin to what is described in Daniel and in the book of Revelation about the Antichrist. So I suggest, go ahead, sorry, Pat.
No, that's fine. I'm interested in how you think it could be a restraining force.
Because the same forces, think about it this way. Right now, we are, as a nation, in a global conflict. Many people refer to it as Cold War 2.0 with China, with other nations. And some of those nations have a very different view of how AI could be used. In the U.S., we're having a real debate right now in Washington and everywhere else about how much of that is appropriate. Should it be that governments know everything about everyone everywhere and have the ability to use that to control behavior, to manipulate behavior? And the Democratic answer, the American answer, is absolutely not, that there are restraints, there are freedoms. The same technology that is used to surveil can also be used to protect and provide those freedoms. Will we have the wisdom to make those choices? I don't know. But the same technology can be used for good and to protect American liberties, just as it can be used in China or elsewhere where to exploit and erode liberties.
Oh, Michael, thank you so much for being with us today and have a great weekend.
You as well.